I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
And then you're going to answer them. And then whatever else you want to tell me, add in there, all you, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So, obviously, Alicia's Voice, what do you have coming up for the event?
What, coming up for an event?
Yeah, do you do any organization, like events?
We do.
Or?
We have in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We have done golf outings, and that has been our biggest money maker. We have done dances, dinner dances. What else have we done? Lots of different things that, whatever we can think of to make money, we have tried to do.
Do you have any of those coming up or no?
We don't have anything coming up right now. We are currently, what we are doing with the monies that we have is monthly. We have a group of 12 women that go to a psychologist that we pay for, and they have group meetings, and just they can talk with each other, and they've all been through the same thing, so they know what's going on, and it makes them open up a little bit better and feel okay to be able to speak out and talk about domestic violence.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, you got involved because of your daughter, but, is there anything else, or?
No, I got involved, actually, the anniversary of Alicia's death is next week. It's on the 29th, so it's next Thursday. And 10 days after she died is when I started Alicia's Voice. And this year will be the 11th year since she has passed away. And that's, the idea came together on an Easter Sunday morning, actually. And I just got friends and relatives together, and that was the beginning of Alicia's Voice. And then our board grew and grew. We had about probably 15 people on our board. Give and take a few, throughout the years. And we just decided that, I knew that I didn't want any other mother or any other kids to go through what I had gone through, or especially another victim to go through what my daughter had gone through. So that was the reason I started it, and I knew that it was extremely hard for a victim to get out of their relationship because typically when they came to us, they would come to us with the clothes on their back, no money or very little money, a lot of times no transportation, and with children in tow most of the time. So you think about it, you think about yourself. If when you walk out of this office today, you have what you have on your back and with you, and that is it. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? And that's why the women would go back to their abusers, because they had no other options. So we wanted to change that aspect of it. And so with the monies that we raised and that were donated, we paid for deposits on apartments. We did car repairs. I replaced windshields several times that were smashed out of their cars by their abusers. Windows in their homes that were broken from their abusers. We would give them things that you can't purchase with food stamps, like household cleaning supplies and shampoos and soaps and razors and all the stuff that you need that takes money. And those things are expensive. Laundry detergent, anything that you can think of that you need. So we would do that. We'd pay electric bills, gas bills, phone bills, anything that victim needed, we were going to make sure that she got it so that she didn't have to go back to her abuser. We put 7 women through STNA school and paid for it, which is a nursing program where they can work in in-home health care or nursing homes. And it, got them to the point where they could take care of themselves and their children. Oh yeah, we had gas cards. We'd give gas cards, and one girl we bought a car for, and just because she walked to work every day, early in the morning, and she had 4 kids, and she'd walk home every day, and it was quite a distance that she had to go. So we got her a car. She was trying, she was trying. So whatever we could do for anybody, whatever need they had, we even to make them feel better about themselves, we had a group of girls that we got haircuts for and their hair done, and we had makeup classes where we had beauticians and come and do their makeup for them, and we provided Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas dinner for them, and toys for their children, or whatever it was. We'd have them make a list of what they needed, and we would make sure that the kids had a good Christmas, because they were going to wake up with nothing,
Now, how does the organization impact your life so far?
Oh, just knowing that is my daughter's legacy, and that we have helped over 2,700 women in Wood County, is just something that makes the pain a little bit easier to bear, because that is her legacy, and she would be so proud of it, I know, and so happy that we were helping other women not to have to go through what she went through.
Is there anything else or no? Is there anything else in that or no?
Trying to think of what else. Just, Alicia's kids too. She left behind 4 children. They were 10 months old, 5 years old, 8 years old, and 10 years old at the time of her death. And they have been pretty involved in this as well. Even the baby, who didn't know what was going on, even he's well aware of who his mother is. He calls her, from the time he was little, we made sure that he didn't forget her with her picture and everything, and he referred to her as Angel Mommy.
Aww. So
he still refers to her as that, and he knows, that she's in heaven, and he's very proud of the things that we do. Another thing that we did is we had concerts in the park.
Okay.
Every summer. And then we had bands that would give their time, donate their time, and it went from noon till 8 at night. And we would sell t-shirts and koozies with Alicia's voice on them. And people would just, donate money right there. And sometimes large amounts of money.
Now, I know you still run the organization. What all do you contribute to?
Well, just make sure that, we continually have new things coming up, and that we have supplies to sell. Like, we'd sell t-shirts at the golf outings and at the concert in the park, and you know, just make sure that everything's running smoothly, and that we have the monies in our funds to help the, you know, women with whatever they need, and to make sure that the awareness is out there. That's really important, awareness of domestic violence. I just got, about 2 weeks ago, a church sent me a donation of $1,000, which was awesome. And, you know, that's a big part of it, is awareness. First of all, that so the women that need us know about us, and that our community knows about us, so they will continue to support us in our cause.
So you decided to get involved because of your daughter.
Yes.
Is there anything else or no?
That was the reason. You know, I had, at the time, I knew there was domestic violence, of course, we all know that. But until it hits home like that, and until I began Alicia's Voice, I had no idea how many victims are out there. And it doesn't have to be just like taking beatings or anything. It can be verbal, it can be, you know, there's a lot of different forms of domestic violence. And it's just to teach these women that this is not normal, because sometimes they think it is. That's what they've grown up with. And a lot of times that is what it is too. The men who abuse women have typically grown up in an abusive household, like Craig, who killed my daughter. He was raised in an abusive household where his mother didn't work outside of the house. He witnessed her having a gun held to her head, a knife held to her throat. She wasn't allowed to have friends. She wasn't allowed to work out of the house, like I said. She was verbally abused, physically abused. And those kids, children really do learn what they live. And he and his sister grew up that way. And little girls that grow up in a household like that, they will choose their mates that are, you know, their abusers themselves. So it's because that's what they learn and that's what they live. So they think that's the norm, which it definitely is not. So we have to, you know, retrain their thought process, and that's why we have our psychologist meetings, you know, every month, and just so they know that this isn't normal, and you don't have to live like this, and you can move on, and you can get out of this situation, and we'll help you in any way that we can.
What all have you learned since taking on this organization?
I have learned, wow, so many things. One thing, like I just said, you know, the magnitude of domestic violence in our county alone, just having helped, and that was in the first 7 years, having helped over 2,700 women, and those are only the ones that came forward. So the main thing I learned is, you know, how prevalent it is. Secondly, how to help these women to get out and to stay out, which is the main thing, that they don't go back to their abusers. And I'd say we had a pretty good run at that. Not that many went back. Some did, and they're, you know, you're going to have that. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. I also learned that we've helped men as well. There are men who are abused, and we helped 5 of them. They, you know, they don't report it as often as women do, out of shame and just ridicule and embarrassment. So the statistics for men being abused is much lower than women. And 1 out of 3 women in their lives will be abused. I've learned so many statistics. And, you know, I go around to universities, colleges, high schools, community organizations, and speak about Alicia's voice. And I have a video that I play. So, and what the video is a video that was used at Alicia's funeral. And it puts a face on domestic violence. And because they can see her from the time she was a little girl until a few weeks before she died. And, you know, they see her whole life, and they see how beautiful she was, and they see her with her 4 children, and it just definitely puts a face on domestic violence. Because I could go out and speak about it all I wanted to, but without having that face, excuse me, it doesn't hit home as much. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I'd have people in tears always during that presentation mm-hmm. and my speech. And I didn't leave anything out. I mean, he came into Alicia's house at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he went through a window, a kitchen window. And the day before, I had gone over to her house like I did every day. And it was March 28th when I went to her house the last time I saw her. And it was really warm out, which is really unusual for March, as we know. And I can remember sitting on her patio, watching her and the kids. They were playing softball and jumping on the trampoline and getting ready to grill out, which was her last meal. And I just remember sitting there and looking at the kitchen window because it was open. I thought, man, it's so beautiful out. And she never closed that window. And that's the window he came through. And she was asleep, of course. And he went into her bedroom and turned on the lights, so she knew what was going to happen to her. And they had been apart for probably 5 months. And Alicia had a boyfriend who was with her at the time. Mm-hmm. And he shot them both. And he shot Alicia 5 times. Twice in the head, once in the neck, once in the chest, and once in the stomach. And he shot her boyfriend 4 times. And Katie, her oldest, who was 10, slept down the hall from her mom, and the other 2 little girls slept upstairs, and the baby slept on the main floor in a little sunroom. And Katie was awakened by her mother's screams. And she didn't jump out of bed right away because she was afraid. So she blames herself. She's always blamed herself because she didn't. But what could she have done?
Yeah.
You can't. Mm-hmm. You know, a 10-year-old can't fight against a grown man with a gun. So anyway, she heard the screams, and then she finally got out of bed and started down the hall when the gunshots went off. So then when she got to the door, Craig was walking out of the door and shut it and said, "Don't go in there." And then it woke the other 2 up, the 5 and the 8-year-old little girls, and they came running downstairs as he just pushed past them and went out the front door. You know, just I've learned so much about that as well, because they all went into her room right away, and she was on the floor, obviously, and her boyfriend was still alive and standing. And they said that his eyes were just darting back and forth, and he said, "It's okay, girls, it's okay, everything's gonna be okay." And then he fell backwards into the closet dead. You know, Katie got down on top of her mother and tried to see if there was a heartbeat or anything. And then she dialed 911, and the other two little girls covered their mother up with her bedspread, and John up with her bedspread. And they just sat there on the bed waiting for the police to come. And they didn't know. I mean, I think they knew by looking at her. I can't imagine what they saw. You know, but Katie, when one of the police officers got there, she said, "Is my mom okay? Is she going to be okay?" And he said, "No, honey, she died." And Katie went running, screaming outside. And the police officer had to chase her and bring her, you know, he brought her back, holding her like a baby back into the house. And then we got the call at 3:21 a.m. I know the exact time. And they said, the dispatcher said that we need to come over there. And we said, "Why?" They said, we'll talk to you when we get there. And so I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth, and my husband was sitting in the den watching out the window, and he saw the police officer pull up, and the kids get out of the car, and Katie was carrying the baby, and he thought, "Where's Alicia?" And then they came in, and Tom, my husband, was talking to the police officer as the kids ran back into the bathroom screaming, "Nani, Nani, Craig shot Mommy." And I just started screaming. And they said, "And she's dead." And by this time, the police officer, my husband, came, and I'm just like, boom, right on the floor. You know, so it's the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life, obviously. And it's the hardest thing my grandchildren have ever been through, obviously. And there have been, you know, for the most part, they've done pretty well. But I've learned a lot about that as well, and what their needs are, and what they, you know, needed to get through all of this. And and with, you know, we got them into counseling right away. And so I know what other children are going through. You know, even if their mother hasn't been murdered, they're still... I remember somebody in one of my speeches I did asking me, "Did Craig ever abuse the children?" And I said, "No." And then I said, "That's not right. He did, because he abused their mother, and they saw that abuse. So that is abusing the children." And to think, you know, when I grew up, I maybe witnessed my parents have 3 or 4 arguments maybe in my lifetime. I can't imagine growing up seeing my father hitting my mother, or, you know, the things he did to her. He shoved her in a closet and wouldn't let her out. And the kids saw all of this. And that's why I'm saying the kids grow up to think that that's okay. And then little girls will choose abusers for mates, and little boys will abuse their significant others. So, you know, I've learned all the things that go along with domestic violence, and how it begins, how it ends. You know, no relationship starts out on the first week or few weeks of the abuser abusing his significant other. You know, it doesn't start out that way. But it slowly happens. It'll start out with verbal abuse, and progress to verbal abuse and mental abuse, and things like withholding money or withholding friendships, withholding the victims from their families. And it progresses. It never gets better. It progresses and progresses until there are then beatings, along with the continuation of the other things that started this whole saga. It just never gets better. The abusers are typically sorry that they did it. I know in Alicia's case, I'm sorry I did that. I promise I won't ever do it again. And it's called the honeymoon phase, where they'll be sorry for what they have done. And then, as it goes around the cycle, it'll go right back up to the abuse again. Then it'll start again, that they're sorry, and maybe they'll do better for a little while, or maybe they won't. But the other thing that abuse is about mainly is control, and it's control of the victim in every way, shape, and form. Just, they have to have control over you, so they will look through your phones, they'll look through your social media, they'll just, in any way they can, they want to control you. Some of the victims, they couldn't even go to the store, and that was with my daughter as well. I was with her one time when we were at the grocery store, and Craig called her and said, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm at the store." And he goes, "No, you're not. You're with some guy." They'll accuse you of those kind of things. And it just, like I said, gets worse and worse and worse as it goes along. The control.
Now, how many volunteers or employees do you guys have?
We have, everybody's a volunteer. Nobody gets paid for anything. Like I said, on my board, I have like 15 people. And then I also have volunteers when we have different, like when we have our dances or our golf outings or our concerts in the park. Obviously the bands, they are part of it. I have employed victims as, helping serve food or drinks or whatever it is that we're doing. There was for the parks thing, the bands in the park, I had a guy who got all the bands together and ran the equipment, and set up the equipment, and we had people, because we needed a U-Haul to get all of the stuff there. I'd have different community people that were very willing to help, like with giving us the U-Haul at no cost. We had balloons for the kids. I had a company who gave us the helium for the balloons for the kids, and I had volunteers that would make animal figures out of balloons, and those are just some of the things. Those were all volunteer, all volunteers, the people who did all this stuff. I had a lady who made jewelry that we would sell at the concerts, and that was at her expense. She paid for the beads and made them all, and there's so many different things that different people did. People helping me sell the t-shirts and all of that stuff.
Now, you don't have any training that they go through?
No.
I didn't think
None
so.
whatsoever. I went straight from being a real estate agent into doing, this. And believe me, it was a full-time job. A full-time job. I would get probably at least 7 calls a week from different victims. And with me going, I did so many different speeches at so many different places. I'd even go as far, I think the farthest I went to Columbus one time, and I went to Warren, Ohio, which that is about as far east as you can go in Ohio. And I spoke before judges and attorneys and all of the court personnel in Warren. That's what I did there. Just trying to get other people to, do the exact same thing in their communities. Because it's so far and wide. I mean, when you think about it, 1 in 3 women, are going to suffer abuse in one way, shape, or form. That's pretty huge.
And then you just offered domestic abuse, just abuse in general.
I what?
The services you do, you just do abuse.
Yes.
And then your role model, I'm guessing, is your daughter.
Alicia is my role model, definitely, because none of this would have happened without what she, went through in her life herself. None of these other women would have been helped if it weren't for her. And, she finally was happy and had gotten away from the abuse, and then he kills her. She was in school and close to graduating, and Alicia is definitely my hero. She's the hero.
And then what do you love most about the organization?
What do I love most about it? That it has my daughter's name on it, number one. That it has brought such widespread awareness. And the generosity for sure, of just individual people, different organizations, churches, everybody reaching out to help.
And then, obviously, because you work here still, how do you balance your work life and your social life and all that?
How do I balance I don't have much of a social life. In the beginning, it's things have calmed down compared to what it used to be. But, first and foremost, in my mind, it was about, first of all, making sure that her children were okay and getting them the services that they needed. That was first and foremost in my mind. Second of all, was to make sure that I could do everything I possibly could to make sure that I could help other women, other victims, not to have to go through this. And so if there was any social time, which there wasn't a lot, because, first of all, having the children and trying to figure all that out was all consuming. And I just, if there was time to do anything, there's been more time now, but, the only thing really that I do for fun pretty much is go out to dinner.
Then how long have you been working for Newlove Realty?
Since 1992, I believe.
And then what is your favorite book and why?
My favorite book?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm an avid reader of James Patterson books. And I could tell you that after Alicia died, I read a lot of Anne Rule books. And I read those because they are true stories about victims. And so I read a lot of those. And I have a favorite book, but oh my gosh, I can't. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Something about heaven, and oh my gosh, I have it at home. And off the top of my head, I'm not being able to think of it. But my daughter loved that book as well. And it was about being in heaven. And I know that Alicia is there. And I know that she's up there watching down on all of us, you know, making sure that we're okay. And I have no doubt in my mind that she is there. And I truly believe in that.
Okay, is there any questions I did not ask that you feel that should be added?
I don't think so. You did a pretty darn good job.
Thank you. And then do you have any questions for me?
So this is for what exact class is it?
Okay, so I'm in a women's history class at Ursuline College.
Okay.
And in the class, she wants us to pick a program that was created by women or has a woman working in it.
Okay.
And because I'm not really from Cleveland, I'm from here, I want to do a program that was here. And this was the first thing that popped in my head. Because I remember like that purple sign on there. So this was the one I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So
good. That makes me happy. That makes me really happy. See, it's people like you.
Oh, thank you.
It really is who make it. I'm not gonna say this right. It's not that it makes it worthwhile, but obviously.
Yeah.
But that it's, you know, you haven't forgotten.
Mm-mm.
You haven't forgotten. And that's what it's all about. It's about the awareness, and obviously it struck you in a way that you haven't forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, by having that awareness out there, is what's going to help all these other victims.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the main thing, getting that awareness out there so nobody does forget. Mm-hmm. And people don't. People still remember that story, because I was on for so many years. I mean, this went on for years, that I would be on television for it and be interviewed. I would, you know, be in the newspaper, huge articles about it and stuff. And to me, that was great, because it just, people didn't forget. And so that's what it's all about, the awareness. That's what it's all about. And I'm very happy to do this.
Oh, no, thank you so much. Like, it really means a lot to me to be able to do it on
Good. I hope
everything.
you have to let me know what